Yeah, so we are going to start doing the chapter 16, and in this particular chapter, he's going to sort of discuss about what is Daiva Sampat and Asuri Sampat. What are these spiritual qualities, or what do you call it, the attributes, and is distinguishing between what are the auspicious qualities to have and what are the negative qualities to avoid. Now, to give you a certain context to it, Bhagavan in the chapter 9, in chapter 7, actually, in the verse number 24 of chapter 7, he was basically telling that a lot of people do not know what divinity is all about. So a lot of people have misconceived notions about what is divinity. Therefore, in the verse number 24, Bhagavan had said, Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyate mam abhujaya param bhavam ajananto mam avyayam anuttamam. So, the common people do not know my very nature. That is what he had mentioned in the chapter 7. I'm just trying to give a context to our discussion on the chapter 16. In chapter 15, Bhagavan has already narrated to us three, four things. Number one, in chapter 14, he had promised that in order to be Gunatita, you have to meditate on me. And therefore, in chapter 15, he described what is that Purushottama thing is that we must meditate on. He talked about this whole samsara and how to cut it, how to be free from the burdensome delusions of the attractive nature of the samsara. And he mentioned about a few qualities that a person need to cultivate in him in order to dissuade himself from getting trapped or tempted or kind of being seduced into accepting this sansara as the ultimate destination. To be able to overcome his own uh, everyday consciousness, to distance himself, and to ascend spiritually, to have a greater degree of inner balance, Bhagavan told about how to meditate on him, number one. Number two, he mentioned about what is the samsara. And then he said how to sort of, what are the good qualities he mentioned towards the end of it. Now he's going to tell us the opposite negative qualities as well as good qualities because he has already told us what to meditate on. So, chapter, these are kind of repetitions in a way, a bit of rephrasing, a bit of rearticulation. Whatever Bhagavan has earlier, in very brief, has mentioned, he would elaborate on these in the 16th chapter. In the seventh chapter, in verse number 24, he had indicated that not everybody is able to recognize him. A lot of people think he's a human being and he can do this or that. So there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's one beautiful thing in Christianity. There is a saying that to be able to love God, you need to understand God. So, and that's very important, and that's very common to both Christianity and Hinduism. And when it comes to the practice of devotion, we need to sort of appreciate what divinity is all about. Of course, there the Semitic god is actually Sopadika, comparable to our Ishvara, who has Maya Sakti, and then he sort of becomes Ishvara. But here we're going one step further to meditate on and to know and be, what is that? The nameless, formless Brahman. Now, in the chapter 9, in the verse number 11 till 13, if you look at it, he again sort of repeats what he said in the verse number 24 in chapter 7, saying, Avajananti ma mudha manushintanumashritam param bhavam ajanantu mama bhuta maheshwaram. Now, a lot of people think that I have this body and I'm a Krishna and this and that. And therefore, they do not know my ultimate nature, who that ultimate thing is. I'm beyond all names and forms. And therefore, he says that this Brahman, don't meditate, don't get confused that Brahman is verily in me. You meditate on me. I'm the Pratishtha, I'm the foundation of everything. And there, in the verse number 12 and 13, in the chapter number 9, he says, Moghasa moghakarmano mogha jnana vicheta saha rakshasi masurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shritaha. Who are the people who cannot recognize him? There are two categories of people, he says, who are kind of clouded, but deluded, who are mohagrasta, who cannot access the divinity, who cannot access the light of consciousness. Who are they? There are two categories, Rakissas and Asuras. Now, Asuras and Rakissas both can be put together in one category is anti-daiva or anti-divine or contrary to the divine principle. And then what is the Asuri Prabriti? You have a strong attraction to sense fulfillment. That essentially is about the whole Asuri thing. We had a long discussion on that. Rakshasi is the Rakshasas are the ones who are all human beings, by the way. They are not like having horns or long nose and a lot of nails or big eyes, nothing of that sort. There are Asuras in us, there are Rakshasas in us, and the Rakshasa is one who is the one who is not feeling, he doesn't mind hurting another fellow because he didn't get what he wants or for the sheer pleasure of hurting others. Somebody who can create pain in others for his own fun, his pleasure. And you have a lot of people like that, isn't it? We have sadists. We have a lot of people who can hurt others and have a sense of pride and have a sense of achievement in being able to hurt, harm, kill, murder. A lot of violence is going on. And he's saying, Rakyasim Asuram Seva Prakriti Mohinim Shrita. And they are kind of overtaken by the game of Prakriti. That means what? All the negative aspects of this Trigunatmika. No Sattva in them, the negative aspects of Rajas and Tamas in them. Then he immediately compares that and counterpositions this particular thing by saying that what about the other ones who are not Asuras and Rakshasas? Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimasrita. That's sattvic guna. They have a lot of sattvic qualities in them. And therefore, they are Mahatmas. Bhajanti anyanyachetaso manaso yatva bhutadimabhyayam. And then they meditate on me. So I just mentioned this because without reference to these three verses, the chapter 16 will not immediately make sense because this is essentially a continuation of a few introductory hints Bhagavan has mentioned about negative qualities and positive qualities that, by the way, there is nothing called a 100% Asura, 100% Rakshasa, and 100% Daiva. It's quite possible that in our own lives, within our own minds, we might have certain times certain tendencies which are very asuric, and certain times they could be very demonic qualities in us. A lot of people who participated, for example, in killing of people in the Nazi Germany, or who sort of participated in the Cultural Revolution in China, or in the Stalinist phase in Russia and the violence, or in the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia, a lot of places we have had, mass killings haven't happened. They have. Who participated in them? Common people. Are they Rakshasas or Asuras? No, they're definitely overcome by certain Rakshasi tendencies. And who are the people who are very greed? And you read newspapers that people have sort of terminated their relatives or cheated people for money. You have all those scams coming up. These are Asuras, but they are very good, nice human beings. That Asuric tendency. So Asuras, these privileges or these qualities or the energies I'm going to talk about is not exclusive to one person, or one person may not be necessarily 100% identifiable with a particular quality. These are warning signs for the devotees, for the aspirants, spiritual aspirants. Look here, these are the ways in which people can be overcome, can be defeated, can be deluded. So you as an aspirant, because you are in samsara or you are a sannyasi, you got to be very careful, because these are very acute modifications, enhanced modifications of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And you are still there. You are not yet gunatita. You are trying to overcome the forces and the consequences of the interplay of these three gunas. The three gunas being one is Sukha and Jnanatmaka, the other one is Paurusha. You're trying to have Paurusha, Prabriti, and Spriha and other things. The third one is that you have this Alasya and Pramada and everything. So these three qualities will keep playing in you through your life. So we would tell you a few positive green lights as to where we should try to orient our sadhana and life towards, and where we need to sort of prevent our mind from moving to. It's like those, it's like those danger areas where we need not go. And therefore, this chapter 16 is very practical because it's all about our everyday life. Having said that, I would mostly only focus on Madhusudana here because I checked the Shankaracharya. Madhusudana Saraswati has virtually taken line by line everything from Shankaracharya. He has added a little more. So if we do Madhusudana, we have sort of taken care of Bhagavan Shankaracharya as well. So let's get started on the introduction to this chapter by Madhusudana Saraswati. Let's target to do about 3 verses because verses are not very difficult here. Anantara Adhyaye, that means in the 15th chapter, Adhasya Mulani Anusantatani Karmanubandhini Manushya Loke. So all this Aswastha Briksha, which is inverted, which the roots are above and the branches are below. He was talking about how all of us get stuck because of our desire, because the branches and the green shoots are the desires, connects us with samsara. Ityatra manushya dehe prag bhavya karmanusharena yajyamana vasanaha. Why do we have a certain good or bad desire? Any good desire we have is also a product of purva punya. Any bad desire we have is also a product of, past atita papa, past papa, or bad deeds that we have. Sansarasya avantara mulatvena uktaha tasya devasuri rakshasi cha iti pranina prakriteyo navamadhyaya suchitaha. And the different desires we have has been kind of hinted by Bhagavan in chapter 9 that we checked, verse number 12 and 13, about that, what are the roots in this Rakshasi and the Asuri. These are the qualities that we checked in chapter 9. And then he said, Tatra Deva Bodhita Karmatma Jnanopaya Anushtana Prabriti Hetu Satviki Suhavasana Daivi Prakriti Iti Uchyate. Now, if you are a person who is slightly pious in nature, spiritually oriented, then you will have good desires, good aspirations. You want to read a book, or you would like to go to some place where you can meditate, or like to take a walk in a very nice place where it's not very crowded. People are not actually, things which gives you a greater sense of integration and inner balance. So he's saying Tatra Veda Bodhita Karmatma Jnana Upaya. So all the scriptural advices as to what are the things to do, like you get up in the morning, you be charitable, do your Nitya Karmas. In a very theological way, you have certain rituals to be done in the morning, like offering water to the sun or taking bath and doing a bit of prayer, Agnihotra and other things. If you do, it's fine. No one does these things today, but at least a few minutes of meditation or prayer and stuff like that. Karmatma Jnana Upaya. And then these karmas are Jnana Upaya. Brahmana Viditi Santi Yajnena Danena Tapasa Anasakena. So with all these bratas and upasanas and karmas, these are Jnana sadhanas. In which way? They purify our minds and they prepare our system for Jnana Agraha, Sravana Manana Nididhyasana. They bring a bit of cleansing of our consciousness and prepare us to read scriptures. Get prepared, if not in this life, next life. So because of certain purva punyas, like for example, we are taking interest, listening to Bhagavad Gita, we had a lot of people, where just few people have remained because there is some purva punya who sort of accounts to sort of hold you onto spiritual texts. Karma, jnana, upaya, anushtana, pravriti, hetu. And then you want to do those karmas. And what is the anushtana hetu? You have some ichha because of which you want to do some karmas. You get up in the morning, you want to meditate, you want to read a book. So what is that pravriti hetu? That he says satviki, subhavasana, daivi. That particular thing is being referred to as what? Daivi prakriti, subhavasana. The aspirational plans to do something good and read something good, meditate or do some japa or things like that. That is Daivi Prakriti. Daivi Prakriti which is Evam Vaidika Nisedha Atikramena, whatever has been actually prohibited in the scriptural text, like killing animals, just saying stuff like that, hurting others. Swabhava Siddha Raga Dvesa Anusari. And then we have our own desires. We like certain things, we don't like certain things. Either we are moved by what is the spiritual tradition which is at the back of our mind or in society or in the books which give you some kind of a sense of direction, what should be done. So there are good books where we say that you should respect your elders, you should study in the morning, do your duties. But here there are certain ritual things which are supposed to be done. So don't take food without taking a bath and stuff like that. You do a bit of prayer, do sandhya vandanam, and suryopasthana or gayatri and stuff like that. So then what you have swabhava siddha, but you want to have your breakfast right on your bed or you want to be cruel to others. That is swabhava siddha based on your purva papa punya. So then what happens? Raga desha nasari sarva anartha hetu prabriti hetu bhuta. Sarva anartha, what is not in your interest. So, it's like somebody wants to get up in the morning and then he wants to have a smoke right on his bed. Others in the bedroom may be feeling offended. They may be small children. He doesn't care. He wants to smoke or he wants to do whatever. Some people drink and then after getting drunk, they misbehave with others. Or maybe you are very cruel. So you have a lot of things in you which are contrary to what the wise people of the past have advised us to do in life. What the scriptures say. He will do exact opposite thing in the morning or in the evening at any time. Those things say prabriti hetu bhuta, and it's coming out of what? Again, there is some quality in you, some papa punya, some prakriti in you. What is that? That is referred to as rajasi, tamasi, cha asura vasana. So you have this Rajasi and Tamasi, Rajasic and Tamasic, Asubha Basana, inauspicious desires, which take roots in us, Asuri Rakhyasi, Cha Prakriti iti Uchyate. So Asuri and Rakhyasi, these are, so you have Rajasika and Tamasika. So you have Asuri and Rakhyasi, these are referred to as this Prakriti. Tatracha Vishaya Bhoga pradhanyena, in order to enjoy something. Could be you want to have a very good bed, you want to have food, you want to see good things, weigh good things. Pradhanyena raga pravalyad asurikvam, because you have that craving. You're not hurting anyone, but you would like to have more. So you'd like to lie, or maybe you'll be a little greedy. A lot of people, 90% of the people in a capitalist society are mostly asurik. They're driven by their craving for material happiness. All hedonistic people, Epicurean people, so to say, are by nature asuras. That is asuric thing. Asura is nothing a bad thing. It's just desire, full of desires. Raga prabalya, strong attraction. I want to have that. I want to have a car and a house. I want to buy this dress. I want to have that food. All that. Asurikvam. Hingsa pradhanyena Vesa pravalyat rakshasitvam iti vivekaha. And there are certain people by nature, they don't mind hurting others. There are places in Africa, including South Africa. So what they do is that they have this biodiversity, and I was dealing with one such thing. So they have these biodiversity plans to protect their flora and fauna and their reserve forest. But what do they do? They need a lot of money. What they do, they have a hunting season. They allow people to come and shoot at these animals and birds, and they will have to pay a huge amount of money. They're super rich people. They think by allowing these super rich people, who are basically Rakissas, these rich Rakissas, with their money, we can protect all other animals. So, what is it? You are actually rearing these animals and protecting biodiversity so that some people can come and shoot at them, have fun. We have that in many places where hunting is allowed. So, like recently, you must have read it in the newspapers. It seems that some super rich people from Middle East would like to come to Pakistan to do this hunting, and they said, "Okay, we'll do it," because they'll donate huge amount. I mean, they'll pay a big amount of fees for this. It happens in many African countries. There are certain countries who have completely banned these kind of shooting or hunting activities, but in many countries, hunting is permitted. And hunting, I tell you, is for fun because you don't do it for any purpose. You don't consume the meat of the animals you kill. You just kill for fun. Birds are flying, you kill them, and they are, deer or tiger, anything which are running. It could be a fox or a jackal or anything. You target, you kill, and that's your fun. I don't know what is it. That is what is Rakshasi. Hingsa pradhanyena dvesa pravalya rakshasitvam iti vivekah. Samprati tu sastra anusarena tad vihita prabriti hetu bhuta satviki suhavasana daivi sampat. Then, as per the scriptures, whatever good things are prescribed, by the way, let's also be very honest about it, that even in these rituals, like in ancient Greece, the Orphic rituals included few rituals which involve blood rites, some rituals, blood rituals. That means animal sacrifices. Similarly, in Hinduism, there are also the Agnishomya, and there are few yagas, few rituals where animal sacrifices were permitted. Animals are not permitted, it's required. And that's one of the reasons why both Buddhism and the Vedanta schools of thought kind of challenge this karmakandi, saying that no, these are prescribed in the Vedas, fine, but it's meant for whom? The dull-minded guys who cannot understand the philosophical implications of the real messages in Vedas. So if you want to actually focus on the real messages, abandon all these karma kandas, focus on the jnana kanda and upasana, do meditation, prayer, do yoga, and then prepare your minds and graduate to that higher level. Do those activities or rituals which are non-violent. But those who are some violent, though theoretically, because you're doing it for a spiritual purpose, you might justify it, but end of the day, the papa will come to you. A lot of people have commented that if you do these rituals, whether you, irrespective of whatever you believe in, even though it may be prescribed, that violence you do, the karma will come to you. Okay? So he's saying that Satviki Swavasana Daivi Sampat Sastra Atikramena Tan Nisiddha Vishaya Prabriti Hetu Bhuta Rajasi Tamasi Cha Aswavasana Rakshasi Aswaryoho Ekikaranena Aswari Sampat iti Dvairasyena Subha Subhavasana Bhedam. Now, just stop here so that I can explain the other ones. Is basically now, in this chapter, Bhagwan kind of just dividing all these vasanas or desires into two categories, saying Daiva, Daivi, and Asuri. So, Daivi, the Rakshasi and Asuri, both are kind of negative. They are contrary to what the good things advised in the scriptures, contrary to the spiritual ascent, contrary to those qualities which will enable you, purify you for higher learning, for meditation. Therefore, they are categorized both into highly materialistic set of qualities which pull you down. They don't take you up, they pull you down. But the Satviki Sampat or this Daivi Sampat, they lift you, they help you go towards meditation and truth aspiration. So that is how they are divided into two. Dvyaha Prajapatya Devasya Asurasya. So there is this Devasura Sangrama. We had this discussion in Chandogya. Ityadi Shruti Prasiddham Subhanam Subhanam Adanaya Asvanam Hanaya. So you have some good qualities, auspicious qualities or desires, aspirations. You should nurture them. So it's like you have a desire to take a morning walk, you want to do some exercise, you want to do some charity work. These are Shubhavasanas, so you should nurture them. If there is a child who wants to do a bit of painting, he wants to do some charity work, he says, Papa, I need a bit of donation, I want to buy some pencils and give it to poor children. The father should encourage it, nurture it. On the other hand, if the father gets to know the son has kind of beaten up his friend or snatched away his painting box because they had an argument, what should the parents do? They should educate their children. No, this is what will take you down in life. You are causing harm and pain and frustration in one of your fellow students. And that's not what we're supposed to do. So that is how he's saying that. So you want to control, limit Asubhavasana, you want to uplift your tendencies, which will give you more auspicious aspirations. Pratipadaitum, in order to establish that, Shodosadhyaya Arapyate. So this is what is I started with. Bhagavan sort of wants to alert us regarding the dangers of being pulled back by negative energies. And he wants to sort of encourage us to sort of see the signals and move and aspire for good, auspicious things to happen. Tatra adau slokatrayena adyam devim sampadam. So in the first three verses, Bhagavan will narrate what are the good things. You know, there are two ways to sort of look at life. So there are some bad things and good things. A lot of people in our everyday conversations, what we do, when we talk to people, we first discuss some negative things, and that's what spoils the conversation. Bhagavan is not like us. He doesn't want to spoil the conversation. He wants to talk about good things. Give us the good news. Tell us the good things. And then he will say, okay, my boys, my friends, we have discussed these are the qualities you have to develop, but please be aware there are a few negative things which might appear in your consciousness as you move forward in your lives. And you need to be very careful to avoid them, to fight all temptations that might arise in you, to pull you back from where you are, where you have already reached or achieved in life as a spiritual aspirant, as a sadhaka. So Arjuna has not asked him any question. Bhagavan is speaking on his own. That is what you have to keep in mind. The conversation kind of started. He had asked some question. Bhagavan has answered, and he just is going on speaking on his own, anticipating doubts and questions in the minds of the student, which is Arjuna, and he is representing all of us. So Bhagavan anticipates problems in our life, in our minds, and therefore he is responding to queries and doubts and confusions in our minds. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Sansuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Danam Damascha Yajnascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam. So in the first verse, there are two lines, and the interpreters say the Avaya Sattva Sansuddhi. So basically, the commentary will be elaboration on each and every word of these. What is Abhaya? Absence of fear. Sattva Sansuddhi, purification of your consciousness in your mind. Jnana, knowledge. Yoga, being connected with the divinity, having that sort of ensuring that you have high level of insight and integration. Vyavasthiti, focusing yourself and stabilizing yourself in this practice. Then he sort of talks about another set of values. Both are Daivi Sampat, but one is meant for sannyasis, the other one is meant for the householders. Because everybody cannot be in a world of yoga and meditation. Somebody who has children and a family, responsibilities, he's in a government job or he's in a social work field or whatever, he's in business, he has to run after a lot of things and attend to a lot of people. So the second line of things applies to him. Danam damasya yajnascha, he should do charity, fine, and dhamma. Dhammas is what? Indriya nigraha, control his mind, control his senses. Otherwise, because he's all the time in samsara interacting with bahya vishaya, he might get attracted. Then Asuri Sampat will emerge in him. And therefore, Bhagavan says that you have to control yourself. Yajnascha swadhyayas tapa. And yajna, the rituals, the sacrifices, we'll discuss that. The pancha yajnas we had discussed in the, when we were reading the Atma Bodha and Tattva Bodha. So this pancha yajnas we'll discuss again today. Swadhyaya, having some time in the day, like we're doing the Bhagavad Gita, you have about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, read two verses of Bhagavad Gita, but just pick up one verse of Bhagavad Gita, but some swadhyaya should be there. And then tapas, some practices, some kind of exertion of energy so that you're kind not becoming dull, you're not becoming tamasic. And arjavam. Arjavam is essentially what? Being straightforward, being simple. There is this a book I was reading, in Christianity, the concept of evil, they sort of discuss, and I was reading a book and which was very interesting. They said that, you know, sensuality, of course, you marry, you have children and all, but sensuality was considered evil. Similarly, sophistication was also considered evil. And too much of personal charm and personality, that was also considered evil. Because why? Because if you sort of fashion yourself as a very charming person, you're not being truthful. So they call this is the evil of character. And they have also something called evil of sophistication. You should be simple in your words. If you're too sophisticated, good behavior and niceties, and they're all fine, have good aristocratic values in life, good behavior and all. But when you become too sophisticated, you may not be telling the truth, and then that sort of becomes unspiritual. And similarly, that desire, having the basic necessities, a relationship, children, family, these are all good. But when you're chasing that as if that is the be all and end all of life, that becomes evil. Here, that Arjava thing sort of reminds me of that it's very important to be a little simple, straightforward, good-hearted, and not be complicated, not be somebody who speaks in a roundabout voice to hide his own intentions and appear as somebody who is very pleasant. That's not very good. And then there are another two verses. I'm just reading it, but we will do that in phases. Ahimsa, Satyamakrodhas, Tyaga, Santi, Rapuishwanam, Daya Bhute Swaluluktam, Mardhavam, Hira Chapalam. Ahimsa, Satyam, Akrodhas. We'll do that one by one. And Shanti, Apaishunam, not talking against others. And Daya Bhuteshu, having kindness towards all animals. Lo Luptatvam, not having that craving and deep desire. Mardhavam, being mridu, being soft, being kind, soft spoken, speaking with a bit of kindness and warmth. And Hri, having that sense of embarrassment, you don't want to do something, crossing the Lakshman Rekha. And Achapalam, not being restless, not speaking things not required. Tejaha Kshama Dhriti Shaucham, Tejaha, having that. Here he will say that what is that? Being mature, being confident, and being having forgiveness, and Dhriti, having that dharya, patience, and then Shaucham, that purity, both inner and outer. Adroha, not being violent, not hurting others, and Natimanita, not becoming too much egocentric. Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim, Avijatasya Bharata. So these are the Daiva Sampats. Now we'll break each and every word of this. So first we'll be doing the first paragraph. So we'll be looking at Abhayam, first word. Sastra Upadishte Arthe Sandeham Vina. So whatever is kind of advised by the scriptures, not the controversial ones, we're looking at straightforward ethical advice is given as to that you be kind, don't try to be violent, try to be truthful, all those things. Without any doubt, Sandeham Vina, Anusthana Nishtatvam, Ekaki, Sarva Parigraha Sunyaha, Katham Jivishyami, Iti Bhayarahitam, Va Abhayam. These qualities are not for all. These are for sannyas, is the first line. So he sort of has, he's sort of somebody who has got dissociated from samsara. He is he's doing this jnana yoga. He's doing Stravana Manana Nididhyasana. So Sarva Parigraha Sunyam, he has taken sannyasa. He's not accepting any material benefits. Katham Jivishyami, why should I live? Bhayarahityam va abhayam. And then he has no fear whatsoever. because he is not worried whether he dies today or tomorrow. He's not bothered. He has left everything. He is a sannyasi. Sattvasya, so uh, sattva sangsudhim, he mentioned that. Okay, samyak suddhi of the sattva. Sattva is what? Sattvasya means antakarnasya. Sattva here is your mind, your inner being. Suddhihi nirmalata, so that purification of your inner consciousness. Here, there is one beautiful twist Ramanuja gives. He says that sattva samsuddhi means that sattva guna you have when you can quarantine it from any association with rajas or tamas. That is sattva samsuddhis. Beautiful way to look at it, in the sense all of us have a mixture of these qualities. A person may be sattva pradhana, he will have a bit of tamas and rajas. But this sattva samsuddha is a person who has kind of banished these two things, rajas and tamas. Okay, that is the guy. He's sattva samsuddha. Karanasa suddhi nirmalata. Broadly, others are all mentioning about this purification of the mind. I think this is more accurate. Tasyaha samyakta. What is that? That of this prakriti, that antakarana, samyakta, that comprehensively. Bhagavat tattva spurti yogyata sattva sansuddhi. Then there is that eagerness in you to sort of feel the divine presence. Open your consciousness to connect with the divine. That is what is sattva sansuddhi. Then, what is the next word here? Sattva samsuddhi, abhaya and sattva samsuddhi we have done. And the next verse is jnana yoga vyavasthitihi. So we'll looking at that. And he's saying paravanchana maya anritadi parivarchanamba. So in order to have sattva samsuddhi, you are supposed to also get rid of a few negative pulls of your mind. You may be a sannyasi, but maybe for convenience you might try to mislead somebody, right? So this paravanchana maya anritadi parivarjanamba. So you abandon. You have taken sannyasa, shall not mislead anyone. You shall not speak in any indirect kapata language kind of thing, and then no lies. So you are abandoning all that. Parivarjanamba. Parasya vyajena vasikaranam paravanchanam. What is paravanchanam? Paravanchanam, he is saying that parasya vyajena, by chala, by telling certain things where you are trying to cheat somebody. Okay, that is what is vyaja. Vasikaranam paravanchanam. You want to win over him by telling a few lies, by speaking some great things about yourself, or by telling that particular person that he or she is in such a problem. If she doesn't take your help, she'll not survive. And then you sort of become a mega personality in her life, and you take control of her vulnerable mind. Then whatever you say, she's going to follow or he's going to follow. Okay, paravanchanam. Hriday anyatha kritya vahir anyatha vivarhanam maya. What is maya? You actually don't mean so much of warmth towards a person, and he needs honest feedback, but you don't tell him that, okay, please don't do it. He's going to an interview. Let's imagine that there are, so someone is going to an interview, seek some advice. Do you think this, I'm planning to say this in the interview? And the answer is that okay. So you don't want to spend time. You say, no, that's an excellent answer. Damn well you know that if a person gives that sort of answer, he's not going to do well in the interview. So you are actually not helping. You're just adulating or praising a person for the heck of it when you know that fellow is not wrong, not right. You're not alerting him. He's going to pay a heavy price for that mistake. But you're saying, why should I tell? How is that? How does that concern me? That is what's kind of maya. Yatha drishta kathanam anritam ityadi. And then you're sort of telling certain extra things, what you haven't seen, what you haven't experienced. Did it happen? Yes. He's giving that kuta sakya, false things or lies. Jnanam. What is sastrad? Atma tattvasya avagamaha. So here jnana is not about reading computer science or geography or politics or history or sociology or engineering. It's about reading those aspects of what is Atma Tattva, the Upanishads. Bhagavad Gita. This is what is jnana. Jnana is what will liberate you. It's not about any Vaishika jnana. It is that Atma jnana. It's about the self. Yada tu abhayam. And what is that abhaya? The first thing is again repeating it. Abhayam sarva bhuta Sarvabhuta Abhaya Dana Sankalpa Palanam. So what happens is that when a person takes sannyasa, he goes to Ganga and then he sort of raises his hands and says, I'm giving you feelings to all because I'm not going to do any animal sacrifices. I'm not a grihastha. I have nothing to do with sansara, and therefore don't you be scared of me. I'm giving you abhaya. That there's a particular thing that he tells, and then his guru gives him dress and stuff like that. Okay, therefore he's saying abhayam sarvabhutebhyo tatva sannyasam achare. That is what is mentioned, that he's supposed to do that, and that is very obvious. Okay, and then I don't know what is happening. There's some. Okay, so sattva samsuddhim. Okay, yeah, and then sattva samsuddhim. Now after this, yada tu abhayam sarva bhuta bhayadana sankalpa palan. Now you have already done sannyasa. You have given abhaya to everybody. After that, you should not do any yajna or tapa or anything where you might hurt somebody, or you might cause some violence, ritualized violence or anything, or hurt somebody or cheat somebody or tell any lies, because you have abandoned sansara. That abhaya dana palanam, you abide by that promise, and which is very important. Etacha anyesam api paramahansa dharmanam upalakshyanam. So the Paramahansa sannyasa, the Dasanami Parampara of Shankaracharya, those who take the Paramahansa sannyasa, there are Kutichaka, Bahudaka, Hansa, and a Paramahansa. So there are different grades of sannyasis. So like the Kutichaka is a person who sort of stays in his house, or he might take sannyasa, stay just outside his village, and he accepts bhiksha from his own son or daughter-in-law, whatever she cooks, he eats, but lives at a distance. He's a Kutichaka, he stays. And Bahudaka, he sort of goes and lives close to a water resource, some sort of a river or a pond or a lake or something, and he does a lot of rituals and a lot of upasanas. He's a Bahudaka. He does a lot of prayers and meditations. And then you have Hangsa, and one step further, he moves around. And Paramahansa is somebody who doesn't have anything. And then there is another category called Abadhuta. He's even, they say that he's even superior to the Paramahansa. So these are in different Upanishads. These are discussed in the specific sannyasa Upanishads where these things are discussed. Now, so he's saying that other Paramahansa sannyasa related qualities are also upalakshana. Like, for example, they'll not stay at any place for 3 days, and they will only do bhiksha in 7 houses. If nobody gives bhiksha, they have to stay hungry. They'll not save anything. They're very strict code of conduct for the traditional sannyasis. Okay. Sattva sangsudhi sravanadi paripakena antakarnasya asambhavana viparita bhavanadi malarahityam. What is asambhavana and viparita bhavana? We have discussed that earlier. You know what is asambhavana? Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya. There is only one Brahman. All of us are not different from each other. You ask anyone, he will say, Kaise ho sakta hai? How is that possible? You're talking some nonsense. There is sansara. Everybody is having different qualities, and you are saying there is one consciousness. My mind is different from your mind. Can't you see that? Then you're saying that there is only one consciousness. He doesn't accept it. That is asambhavana. That means Brahman is not possible. Challenging the fundamental truth of Vedanta, of the Upanishads. That is what is asambhavana. What is viparita bhavana? Accepting the sansara. This alone is real. Forget about this shastra and all nonsense. 99% of the people have both asambhavana and viparita bhavana. Viparita bhavana means they have absolutely no interest in the asambhavana. People may still be a little interested sometimes, right? They may be Dvaitis or other things, but they may have some interest in spirituality. But these viparita bhavana people will be completely in the different direction. They will say, no, the exact opposite is true. Let me follow that. Okay, there's a lot of people who don't believe in gods, and I've seen that in my personal life. They don't believe in gods and goddesses, or they don't believe in Brahman or Vedanta, but they go to astrologers. You must have also seen them. If you tell them that I want to discuss Vedanta or something, they are very least interested in you. But then if you tell them that you know how to see hands, they'll immediately show their hands to them. So they are ready to believe in some stupid things like astrology or palmistry, but they don't want to believe in God. They believe in ghosts and spirits. And if you say there are some horror films and all, they take interest. They're ready to believe in spirits. They don't want to believe in God. Look at how miserable they are. So that is how this is the viparita bhavana, asambhavana viparita bhavana. So sravanadi paripakena, when there is, after listening to the scriptures, when the mind matures, what happens? Antakaranasya, of the mind, the inner consciousness, is free from this asambhavana. It begins to open up to the possibility of realizing the self. It begins to accept Brahman as one unified reality, which we can aspire to realize in our lives. Not one life, maybe 20 lives, so what? But they start accepting that. They start accepting that Upanishadic insights. And they are also free from the viparita bhavanas, that these negative things that we do in everyday life, that is the only reality. No, they're free. Bhavana rahityam, because of the maturity a person gets after listening to these spiritual scriptures. Jnanam, Atma Sakshatkaraha. Here, jnana is not about reading books or not about this. We're talking about Daivi Sampat, right? That is the, what do you call it? Wealth, the spiritual wealth of a person. It's not about having read a book, it's about Atma Sakshatkara. Not everybody. So, that touch of divinity, some self realization, that is what is Jnana Atma Sakshatkara, what is yoga. Mononasa Vasanakshaya. So that the two things, what happens after Poroksha Tattva Darshana. So somebody reads Upanishads, understands Bhagavad Gita and all, he accepts the Brahman. He knows that I have to do sadhana. But mononasa, he hasn't happened. Some Purana sanskaras are there, old sanskaras, and he continues to repeat a few old habits. Vasana kya, he still has a lot of desires. I want to have this and that. So he doesn't have Videha Mukti, but he has some Tattva Darshana. So he is slightly better, he's definitely advanced, but not 100%. All of us actually, if you look at even 99% of actually in the spiritual field, I'm not talking about people who are in samsara or having loads of viparita bhavana and asham bhavana, talking about people who have opened up to the possibility of self-realization. Even amongst them, mononasa and vasanakhya is never 100%. They're just in the process. In some people, it may be they have still 10% or 5% or 2%, but these things still remain. And therefore, it's a long journey. It's not that you're going to sort of snap everything. Asanga sastrena dridhyana chitva, it's all mentioned, but it's not so easy. It actually is a long journey of purification of the self. Therefore, he's saying, so manonasa vasanakhya anukulaha purusha prayatna stavhyam vishishta. So with these two, with this chesta or yatna, that means perseverance, to do mononasa and a vasanakhya, tranquilizing, pacifying your mind and reducing your desires and your cravings. With that two adjectives, when you do a lot of prayatna, perseverance, then what happens? Sansari vilakshana avastitihi, jivana mukti, jnana yoga vyavastitihi. That jivana mukti thing, that you have tattva darshan, and after that you are trying to do vasana kaya and mononasha, and you are doing that yoga, jnana yoga vyavastitihi, and you also have some strong, you're very close to that Atma Sakshatkara. You've had Tattva Darshana, but you are not free from the old impressions, which are some stains on your consciousness. You're just still washing them off. But you have already had realization, but you want to make it 110% in that sense. Sthitihi ityevam vakhyayate tada phalabhuta eva daivi sampad yam drashtavya. And that is what is daivi sampad. So in this whole process, that he said, Bhagavat Uktim vina antakarna sansudher ayogat taya sapi kathita. Now, there is a doubt that why Bhagavan did not mention all that in detail, talking about it in chapter 9. That there are these Mahatmas who are kind of very close to me and they're meditating on me and they sort of all the time meditate. Why didn't he mention about these qualities? Okay. The answer is that bhakti yoga, because it is Madhusudana Saraswati, he also says it, a person who is dedicated to God and is surrendered 120% is absolutely nothing. He's all the time having that blind faith. It's quite possible that he may not be a sannyasi, he may have not crossed all the qualifications, the eligibilities which have been discussed here, like abhaya, right? And this first line, Sattva Sangsudhir, Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti, all these things may not have achieved. And yet, because he is completely devoted in that ocean of devotion, in the light of devotion, when he's 24 hours meditating on Lord Krishna, on Bhagavan, with whatever name and form, these things do not matter. And therefore, Bhagavan didn't mention. He says that, okay, you may have a few bad qualities. You may not have all these eligibilities. Are you madly after me? Of course, I'm going to hug you and take you in mine. I'll take you and I'll control you. I'll protect you. I'll transform you. And there's a beautiful sentence in Sri Aurobindo, everything is possible when God touch is there. When divine sort of manifests and comes into one's life, what is our power before it? If God wants to transform a person, even a sinner, into a saint, he can. If that dedication, that surrender is there 100%. And that's what he's saying, Uktim bina antakarna suddhe ayogat taya sapi kathitaha. And therefore he's saying that this sort of kind of, that is also kind of is mentioned here. And so, so let's, so, let's move forward to discuss the next thing. Now, he had mentioned that in the verse number 13 in 9th chapter. What was it? Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimasritaha bhajantyanyano manasho jnatva bhuta bhutadi mavayam. That I am the beginning of this bhuta varga and I'm avyaya. They know this. And then ananya manasho, without being distracted, without thinking about anything else, the 100% focus on me. Iti navame devyam sampadi Bhagavad Bhaktir Uttatvacha, because Bhagavan Bhakti is being emphasized. Therefore, he's not talking about all other qualities. Bhagavad Uktir Atisreshtatvat, that Bhagavad Bhakti, that is superior to all our sadhanas. And therefore, Abhayadivi sa patho na krita iti drashtabhyam. Therefore, there is no point talking about the smaller qualities. You may have Abhaya, Sattva, Samsuddhi, Jnana, Yoga, Tapa, but the bhakti part is not strongly there. It's like you have a big building, you have big business, you haven't done an insurance policy. So it's not sustainable. It can be washed away anytime in an accident or in a natural calamity or anything, in an emergency. You might lose all that you have. That's why Bhagavan says that the one who sort of dedicated is deeply in a devotional connectivity with me, all these things will follow. Provided that depth of devotion is there, then everything else sort of follows. And therefore, he did. put an end to the YouTube. And thank you for listening to me.